possible that you would see an unprecedented result in the election? Is that possible? Is it possible theoretically?
No, it's not possible for a president to get 20% more votes than they got the first time than still lose. You know,
But
President
you didn't answer the
Barack
question, though.
Obama got 3.5 million less votes the second time than the first time. He still won.
Okay.
So you're really looking at just pure impossibilities here.
I'm not. So you're saying that there's lots of things that happened for the first time during the Trump presidency.
David Pakman brought on this MAGA candidate, this guy who absolutely destroyed him on his own show, the David Pakman Show. And once again, David Pakman melts down, tries to change subject, tries to rage quit the debate as he's just getting destroyed on his own show. Once again, we have David Pakman getting cooked and getting embarrassed on his own show once again. Let's check it out.
Have you ever seen things happen for the first time in your life, John?
Of course.
Okay. And so something happened for the first time in November of 2020. Is that fair to say? We'll get to whether it happened fairly. Let's not jump ahead, but arguably something happened for the first time in November of 2020, which is a sitting president got more votes and still lost. Fair? It was the first time that happened.
Well, there's different categories of things that happen for the first time.
Okay.
There's getting into a car accident for the first time.
Okay.
Well, guess what? Other people get into car accidents all the time, so we know that it's something that happens. You're talking about getting more votes the second time you got the first time. That's something that never happens. And so that's a different category. That's something that is almost certainly mathematically impossible.
Okay.
So it's not the same category as other things that happen for the first time.
So let me give you an example of something else during the Trump presidency that happened for the first time. And then let's see if we can agree and then extrapolate from that. The average approval rating for Donald Trump during his 4 years was the lowest of any president in the modern era. Would you agree with that? And this is no matter, even if you look at a right-leaning pollster like Rasmussen, which had Trump higher, still, on average, Trump's approval was the lowest of any president in the modern era. Can we agree on that fact?
I might double check that, but let's assume just for argument's sake.
Let's assume it's fair enough. So my suggestion to you as a thinking man, well-educated, everything we're talking at high level here, given that Trump's polling was the lowest of any president in the modern era, which had never, it was unprecedented low, isn't it also possible that you would see an unprecedented result in the election? Is that possible? Is it possible theoretically?
No, it's not possible for a president to get 20% more votes than they got the first time than still lose. You know,
but you didn't answer the question.
Barack Obama got 3.5 million less votes the second time than the first time. He still won.
Okay.
So you're really looking at just pure impossibilities here.
I'm not. So you're saying that there's lots of things that happened for the first time during the Trump presidency, but this one thing, Trump getting more votes and losing, that one's not possible.
It's so funny how condescending David Pakman's trying to be against this guy who's just answering his questions in a very honest way, in a very straightforward way. And he's trying to be so condescending. This is all what David Pakman does, just bad faith debating at his finest. I always say that the side, I mean, you should watch out for the side and not trust the side that is constantly trying to downplay election integrity. If you're, living in the United States of America, our elections are supposed to be everything. They're supposed to be fair, democratic, true, no foul play. That separates us from all other countries. That's what we're told our entire lives. That's what we're told going up the school system. All these other countries, they have all these other problems. Their elections are all rigged. United States, though, we're different. We're supposed to be different. And that's supposed to separate us, right? That's what separates us from all the other countries. So people like David Pakman and other people, not just David Pakman, but a ton of people on the left, if they're arguing against election integrity and they're trying to say, oh, the election could possibly be unfair, you think it could possibly be foul play, you are insane. You're a right-wing conspiracy theorist. You should look out for those people, because I would think that even anyone who doesn't think there's anything wrong with the elections, they would still be on the side of, yeah, we should 100% be making sure our elections are fair. We should make sure the integrity is not compromised or in question, up in the air. It's completely locked down. And 100% fair, no foul play, no manipulation. Just straight up, whoever gets the most votes, whoever wins the electoral college wins the election. But then these people like David Pakman, because they're so brainwashed by the left wing, and basically their whole entire worldview is whatever the right wing says is wrong and is the enemy. So we say, hey, we should make sure our elections have the top tier integrity, right? And like, oh, that's evil. We shouldn't mention that.
That's correct, because like I said, different categories of things that happen for the first time.
Wow.
There's some things that happen for the first time that are plausible. There's some that are not.
Why haven't any courts found any merit to the 63 different 2020 election-related complaints that have been brought to them? Many of them Trump-appointed judges. Why is it?
Because the Democrats had their legal game going in a really good way, I must say. Even though what they're working for was not good, they had people like Mark Elias in charge of it, and they did a good job of it. Our side was slow to react, slow to respond, and did not take this issue seriously enough before the election. That's just a sad fact. I wish it weren't true. So that's the answer to your question there.
But if there were merit, wouldn't a Trump-appointed judge say, there's merit here, let's proceed?
Well, you know, if you look at our side leading up to the election, when it comes to election integrity,
yeah,
didn't prepare well enough. That's just a sad fact of it. So
how could you have been more prepared? There was an army of hundreds of lawyers, and Trump said for
If you enjoy content like this, to make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video.
6 months it was going to be rigged. How could you have been? What could have been done to be more prepared?
A whole lot more. You need to have action at the state level. You need to have litigation.
They did.
Watching, there was not nearly enough of that going on. You need to have poll watchers, you need to have poll challengers signed up. Look in Virginia, for example, at Governor Youngkin's election.
Yeah.
Typically in an election in Virginia, Republicans have coverage at 20% of the precincts as poll watchers.
Okay.
But when Governor Youngkin won, Republicans had 90% coverage at the precincts. That's a concrete example of something that the Republicans did that was smart and that made an impact on the election. And what I'm saying and I'm suggesting here is that we didn't have enough of that leading up to the 2020 election, which is why you saw some of the results you did. And that carries over, David, as well to the legal issues where there's not enough preparation, very sadly. So, yeah, I think we've got to bring our A game next time.
Why do you think that in Arizona, the audit that was done extended Joe Biden's lead?
I have to go look at that. A lot of these audits, they simply recounted the existing ballots, which is not what you do. You want to go through and do a more thorough look to see which ones are valid and which ones are not, et cetera. But that being said, I need to go back and read the details of that to find out exactly what happened. But yeah, I mean, we really have got to make sure we increase our election integrity. People are losing faith in the system. There are people saying they're not going to vote anymore because of what happened. So we really have got to restore the public's confidence in our election system. You
know, the polling shows that the American people are actually very confident in our election systems. It's just some Trumpists that aren't. But what indicator are you seeing that at the national level, Americans aren't confident?
David Pakman here. We now know that Americans aren't that confident in the election system, which is why Trump won so resoundingly in 2024. And I understand he didn't win that by much if you look at the popular vote, but considering that Republicans very rarely win the popular vote, I think it was a pretty resounding victory for Donald Trump, which a large part of that being the election integrity stuff. And I just think that anyone with a brain, with common sense, if you just zoom out and take the bias out of your opinion here, and you look at states like Florida, who have made election integrity a top priority since 2020, they close their ballots within an hour and they know who won their state. And then they have states like Arizona and California where they close their ballots and they don't know who won their state for 6 or 7 days. I mean, what? And the down ballot races, they don't know who won those races for a couple of weeks. Like, that's just unacceptable and sad. But if you just zoom out and, like I said, you just take the bias out of it, you will also agree that that is unacceptable. How is that acceptable for any American? How does any American sit back and say, oh, no, that seems about right. We'll just let it up in the air. Nobody should be saying that. It's absolutely ridiculous, absolutely unacceptable. It doesn't make any sense.
Looked at polling and Americans seem very confident.
I've looked at polling that says the opposite. Something like over half of all people believe that the 2020 election results were not legitimate. Even among
That's not true.
Even among independents, the number I believe was over 50%.
No.
And among Democrats, the number was something like in 30 to 40% range. So there's a very, very significant number of people that believe that, unfortunately, there were real irregularities in the 2020 election. And that's why we've got to restore the public's confidence in the election process.
I mean, I think, you know, that's not true that that's what the polling is. In the immediate aftermath of the election, 57% of Trump voters believed that. That number has since declined dramatically. And right now, only about 20% of overall Americans believe that. But I think I have a different question, which is, just because of a lot of Americans believe something, does that mean we change our laws for that? What's your philosophy on that?
Well, you know, I think you have a point there, David, that we do what's right, not based on popular opinion. But this is a nation where popular opinion does happen to be right, that there were issues. And so, like I said, the results were mathematically impossible. So we've got to look at what happened, and we've also got to make sure elections are secure going forward.
You know, it's weird because...
Oh, dude, man, this dude did a great job. He did just a great job of tearing apart and answering every question David Pakman threw away in a super condescending, bad-faith way. he just tears them apart and just answered them straight up. He answered them with facts, with logic. And David Pakman has no answer. He just keeps shifting topics, more condescension. Just typical David Pakman tactics. Let me know in the comments what you think about David Pakman once again getting absolutely torched on his own show, The David Pakman Show.